Have you ever watched a massive, destructive storm completely lose its power the exact moment the winds die down? One minute the gale force winds are ripping through everything, shattering boundaries and creating total chaos. And the next, there is nothing left but an eerie, sudden stillness. That is the exact psychological shift that happens inside a narcissist's mind the very second they realize you just don't care anymore. The endless cycle of explosive arguments instantly evaporates. The heavy atmosphere of fear, anxiety, and walking on eggshells vanishes. In their place, you leave them with zero emotional reactions. No tears, no defenses, no shouting back, and no desperate pleas for them to understand your side of the story. You give them nothing but pure, unbroken, unbothered silence. To an ordinary person, silence might just mean a conversation is over, but to a narcissist, it is an absolute catastrophe. That cold, steady stillness shakes them to their deepest core, far more than any screaming match ever could. Because a screaming match means you are still invested. Silence means they have become completely irrelevant. The very first thing that hits a narcissist when you go quiet is the terrifying, suffocating realization that they have lost total control over you. You have to understand that for a narcissist, control isn't just a casual preference or a bad habit. It is the oxygen they breathe and the entire foundation of how they exist and interact with the world. They cannot function as equals. They can only function as masters or victims. From the literal moment they first met you, they were subtly auditing your personality. They studied your vulnerabilities, learned exactly what makes you smile, figured out what makes you cry, and mapped out the precise emotional triggers that cause you to react. They weren't getting to know you out of love, they were gathering intelligence. Over time, they used that data to build a highly customized psychological playbook designed specifically to keep you small, predictable, and firmly under their thumb. They consciously weaponize every single emotional state available to keep you off balance. One day it is overwhelming praise and love bombing to make you dependent on their approval, and the next it is a heavy dose of manufactured guilt and fear to make you second-guess your own sanity. They will fluidly switch from intense, intoxicating charm to a chillingly cold shoulder, using these alternating currents to maintain absolute emotional dominance over your life. When you look back with clarity, you realize it was never love at all. It was possession wrapped up in the convincing illusion of affection. But the very second you choose to step away from the game, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that entire carefully constructed power structure doesn't just fracture, it completely crumbles to the ground. To a narcissist, controlling your mood is the ultimate validation of their existence. It is how they prove to themselves that they are powerful. If they can force you to chase them down a hallway, cry yourself to sleep, endlessly argue to prove your innocence, or even hate them with a burning passion, they feel completely alive and vindicated. Your raw, visible emotional reactions are the primary fuel that feeds their parasitic ego, and the confusion they intentionally map out for you fuels their deeply rooted sense of absolute superiority. They look at your distress and think, look at how much power I have over this person. As long as they know they can get a rise out of you with a single text, a passive-aggressive comment, or a cruel glance, they sleep soundly because they believe they still hold the keys to your emotional well-being. They believe they still matter. But the exact moment you stop reacting, the entire rules of the game are rewritten. When you completely stop explaining your motives, stop defending your character against their ridiculous accusations, and stop trying to justify your actions to someone who deliberately chooses to misunderstand you, Their illusion of control instantly vanishes. This loss of grip doesn't fade away quietly or end in a peaceful realization for them. It triggers a violent, chaotic collapse inside their own mind. They begin to experience a severe psychological panic because the mirror they use to view themselves as an all-powerful puppet master has just been shattered by your indifference. They sense this shift in the wind long before you think they do. Narcissists are hyper-attuned to power dynamics and emotional undercurrents, especially when they feel the strings of control starting to slip right through their fingers. In the beginning stages of your detachment, they might try to play it cool. They may put on a grand performance, acting like they don't notice your distance, or pretending they couldn't care less that you've gone quiet. But behind that smug, rigid mask, they are in a state of absolute frantic panic. They are screaming questions to themselves in the dark. Why aren't you begging for my attention anymore? Why aren't you checking in, checking my social media, trying to fix things, or crying over what I said? They will obsessively replay past conversations in their head and overanalyze your new, unshakable stillness. For someone who is completely addicted to chaos and control, that absolute silence is the most terrifying, unpredictable, and punishing thing in the entire world. When all of their standard, predictable tricks completely fail to move you, the narcissist enters a state of high-alert desperation and frantically scrambles to regain their footing. They realize that their smooth charm and subtle manipulation are no longer working, so they instantly resort to psychological warfare. They will deliberately hit below the belt, hurling a deeply cruel comment, a toxic passive-aggressive jab, or a highly offensive insult directly at you. This isn't random anger, it is a calculated test. They are throwing emotional dynamite at your boundaries just to see if they can still hook you, drag you back into the mud, and force you to defend yourself. They are desperate to know if they still possess the power to pull an angry, hurt, or crying reaction out of your soul. But when you remain completely unfazed, sitting in calm, immovable silence while looking right through them, the dynamic completely flips. Suddenly, the narcissist feels terrifyingly exposed, completely naked, and fundamentally weak. An agonizing psychological state that they spend every waking second of their lives working overtime to avoid. You have to realize that a narcissist's entire fragile identity is built on a delusion of being completely untouchable, universally admired, or intensely feared. They can handle you fighting back, and they can even handle you hating them, but they absolutely cannot handle being completely ignored. Total indifference from someone they used to successfully control and manipulate is the ultimate undeniable signal that the game is officially over and that they have lost their power. When you reach this level of true detachment, don't expect them to have a sudden breakthrough or a moment of honest self-reflection. They are completely incapable of sitting down to think about how their toxic behavior, constant lies, and endless disrespect pushed you away in the first place. Instead, their mind completely bypasses self-awareness and focuses on a single, selfish obsession. How did I lose the ability to keep this person hooked? To protect their massive ego from the truth, they will immediately turn around and project all the blame onto you. They will loudly call you cold-hearted, label you as disloyal, or paint you as an incredibly ungrateful person. Their disordered mind simply cannot process or accept the simple fact that their own relentless exploitation and emotional abuse are the exact things that permanently ruin the relationship. To quickly save face and protect their artificial image, they will rapidly shift into extreme defensive tactics and start frantically rewriting history. They will completely alter the facts of what happened, convincing themselves and anyone who will listen that they were actually the ones who walked away from you. just so they never have to sit face to face with the devastating truth of their own failure. The reality that they are running from is that they lost you because they never actually had you to begin with. They only ever had temporary access to your beautiful emotional energy, and now that tap has been permanently shut off. Even though they are drowning in absolute internal chaos, panic, and embarrassment behind closed doors, they will immediately put on a massive, highly public performance for the world. Narcissists are world-class actors who live for the applause of an audience. They will instantly start aggressively flaunting brand new relationships, exaggerated career achievements, or a sudden forced burst of absolute joy across social media, specifically designed to trigger intense jealousy, regret, or deep self-doubt inside your mind. But when you are healed, you can look at this circus and see it for exactly what it is. Nothing but cheap, desperate theater. They completely understand that they can no longer control you directly, so they are throwing all of their remaining energy into trying to control the narrative and how other people perceive them. What their fragile minds fail to understand is that by the time a person truly stops caring and goes completely silent, that person has already done the heavy lifting. You have already spent countless lonely nights mourning the tragic death of the relationship, grieving the false hopes they sold you, and processing the agonizing reality of the emotional abuse you endured. You did the painful work while you were still in it, and you have finally come out on the other side. What is left inside of you now isn't anger, bitterness, or a desire for revenge. It is pure, unshakable clarity. And absolute clarity is the ultimate swift death of manipulation, because you can finally see the puppet master pulling the strings, and you choose to simply walk away from the show. The absolute moment a narcissist realizes their psychological grip on you is completely gone, they will immediately begin rapidly cycling between two extreme, toxic defense mechanisms: explosive, blinding rage or an icy, punishing silence. There is absolutely no middle ground with them. These two responses are not random emotional outbursts. They are highly calculated, desperate attempts to reassert their slipping dominance and explicitly punish you for having the absolute nerve to detach from them emotionally. They cannot handle a world where they do not dictate your mood, so they switch between fire and ice to shock your system back into submission. You have to understand that narcissistic rage is fundamentally different from ordinary human anger. Ordinary anger usually has a logical baseline, a point where it peaks, and a path toward resolution. Narcissistic rage, however, is a volatile, wildly disproportionate psychological explosion that comes entirely out of nowhere. It is triggered by a deep, bleeding internal wound of perceived rejection or abandonment. The exact moment you stop chasing them, stop begging for their validation, and stop allowing your life to revolve around their chaotic games, the narcissist experiences what psychologists call a severe narcissistic injury. It is a devastating, crushing blow to their carefully manufactured self-image of perfection and superiority. Because their fragile egos are entirely incapable of sitting with that agonizing discomfort, processing their feelings, or reflecting on how their own toxic behavior caused the situation, they instantly project all of that burning internal poison directly onto you. Suddenly, you become the ultimate target for their psychological warfare. You will be forced to face incredibly harsh, venomous words, completely irrational outbursts, and vicious character assassinations or smear campaigns designed to cut you straight to the bone. They will target your deepest insecurities, trying to make you question your own value, your sanity, and the incredible healing progress you have worked so hard to achieve. But you must realize their true goal. They aren't just trying to hurt you, they are trying to shock you back into emotional engagement. The narcissist honestly does not care if you cry, scream back in frustration, or fight to defend your name. To them, negative energy is still energy. As long as you give them a chaotic reaction, you are giving them the ultimate confirmation that they still hold power over your mind, that they still deeply matter to you, and that they are still the center of your universe. However, if their explosive rage completely fails to ignite your emotions, and you remain perfectly calm, centered, and quiet in the face of their absolute fury, the narcissist will instantly switch tactics from fire to ice. They realize the screaming isn't working, so they pull out the next major weapon in their toxic arsenal, the chilling silent treatment. You must never confuse this with a healthy, mature request for space or personal reflection. This cold silence is a highly active, punishing weapon, specifically engineered to make you feel completely invisible, unworthy of communication, and utterly abandoned. The narcissist intentionally creates a massive emotional vacuum, deeply hoping that the agonizing weight of their absence will pull you straight back toward them out of sheer desperation. They want you to panic. They will ignore your direct messages, look right through you, and pretend you do not even exist in a shared room, or completely disappear off the face of the earth, only planning to return when they think your emotional walls are finally starting to crack under the pressure. This relentless, exhausting back and forth between extreme rage and chilling silence creates a highly addictive psychological trap. For anyone who has been deeply entangled with a narcissist, these wild emotional swings are designed to keep you permanently off balance, unstable, and constantly second-guessing your own reality. They want you sitting alone in the dark, wondering if you were too harsh, if you did something wrong, or if you are the one driving the relationship into the ground. That confusion is the exact blueprint of their design, because an unstable target is an easy target to control. But what the narcissist fundamentally fails to realize is that true, genuine detachment is entirely resilient. When you finally reach the point where you truly, deeply no longer care about their opinion or their approval, their terrifying rage instantly loses its sting and simply becomes meaningless background noise. Likewise, their punishing, icy silence stops feeling like abandonment and completely transforms into your own beautiful, peaceful breathing room. You finally begin to see right through the cheap, dramatic performance. You look at their wild tantrums and their cold ignore tactics, and you realize with absolute certainty that neither their loud outbursts nor their manipulative absences have anything to do with you. It is nothing more than a desperate, pathetic bully scrambling for a shred of relevance in a brand new world where their expiration date has passed and their power over you has permanently died. When their desperation hits an absolute peak and they realize none of their standard tactics are working, the narcissist's behavior completely unravels. Their manipulation stops being smooth, calculated, and clever, and instead becomes frantic, wildly disorganized, and entirely fueled by deep internal panic. They are losing their grip on you, and that fear drives them into a manic, chaotic cycle. They will desperately throw every single weapon they own at you all at once, shifting through entirely different personalities in the span of a single afternoon. In the morning, they might try to love bomb you, sending sweet, desperate messages, promising that they have finally seen the light and are actively rewriting their behavior just for you. By lunchtime, if you don't respond, that fake warmth completely vanishes, and they will hit you with an intense guilt trip, listing every nice thing they ever did for you while accusing you of being heartless. By the evening, when that fails too, they will sink into an icy, passive-aggressive silence, only to start the exact same frantic routine all over again the very next day. During this desperate phase, they will easily offer up the most elaborate, beautiful apologies you have ever heard from them. But you must look at those apologies with absolute clarity. These words are not born out of genuine remorse, personal growth, or a real understanding of the immense pain they caused you. It is a completely transactional, calculated move designed for one single purpose. They need you to bite the hook so they can reset the emotional connection and pull you back into the cycle. If you remain completely unmoved and refuse to swallow the bait, they will immediately switch to their favorite backup plan, weaponizing guilt and completely twisting history. They will shamelessly rewrite the past, downplaying their horrific mistreatment of you while massively exaggerating their own sacrifices. They will take center stage as the ultimate tragic victim, running straight to your mutual friends, family members, and social media platforms to launch a massive pity campaign. They need an audience to validate their fake pain, and they want to control how the world sees you, desperately trying to make you look like the cruel, cold person who abandoned them after everything they did for you. The very second you shut that emotional door completely and lock it tight, the narcissist faces a terrifying reality they cannot handle, leaving them with absolutely no choice but to go hunting for a brand new source of supply. You have to understand that a narcissist cannot survive in an emotional vacuum. They are fundamentally empty inside, lacking any internal sense of self-worth, which means they constantly require the attention, validation, admiration, or even the anger of others just to feel alive. When you cut off that supply, they begin to psychologically starve, so they go searching for a new target with an immense sense of urgency. They will consciously look for people who are highly empathetic, deeply kind, open, and perhaps a bit vulnerable at the moment. They target these beautiful, giving traits because an empathetic person is easy to charm, quick to forgive, and highly susceptible to a tragic sob story. The narcissist will dust off their exact same old playbook, instantly jumping into a high-speed relationship where they play the ultimate victim of a crazy, ungrateful ex, securing quick, deep emotional investment from this unsuspecting new person who thinks they are rescuing a wounded soul. To a healed person looking from the outside, this sudden jump to a new partner looks exactly like what it is, a cheap, desperate distraction. The narcissist will often go out of their way to loudly flaunt this new supply right in your face, plastering forced, over-the-top happiness across social media or ensuring mutual contacts tell you how amazing their life is now. They are doing this for one specific reason. They want to provoke you into a jealous, angry reaction. They want you to break your silence, call them up, or cry over how quickly they replaced you. If you give in and show any sadness or anger, they feel instantly validated, taking your pain as absolute proof that they still matter and still hold power over your heart. But if you choose to remain perfectly silent, unbothered, and focused entirely on your own life, they feel the sharp, agonizing sting of your total disinterest all over again. They realize that their grand show isn't working, and jumping to a new supply solves absolutely nothing for them. It doesn't fix their broken internal world. It merely postpones their inevitable psychological collapse because they are fundamentally incapable of forming a real, healthy, reciprocal human bond. Eventually, the initial honeymoon phase with the new person will end, the charming mask will inevitably slip, and the exact same toxic cycles of devaluation and disrespect will repeat themselves all over again. No matter how many new people they cycle through, the narcissist always ends up right back where they started, profoundly empty, bitter, and desperate for validation. Even while they are actively draining their new supply, they will often keep a running mental inventory of their past partners, including you. Months or even years down the road, when their current situation gets boring or dry, they will suddenly reach out to you out of nowhere, sending a casual, vague text message like, "Hey, I saw something that reminded me of you," just to test the waters. You must recognize this for what it is, an emotional fishing expedition. Answering that message, even with a single word or a cold rejection, tells them that the door is still cracked open and that they can still access your energy. Choosing to stay completely silent and keeping that door locked is your ultimate superpower because it totally destroys every ounce of leverage they think they have. Your peace is the ultimate, undeniable proof of their total failure, and your absolute silence is 1,000 times louder and more damaging to their ego than any screaming argument you could ever have with them. By stepping away entirely unaffected, completely unmoved, and deeply uncaring about their opinions, their lies, or their fake happiness, you win the ultimate victory. You walk away into a life of genuine peace, healing, and self-worth, while leaving the narcissist behind to face the one thing they spent a lifetime trying to run from, the terrifying, echoing emptiness of their own soul.